Hello, great to see you here. Very friendly atmosphere. So my name is Ekaterina. I work in Zurich, Google. In Google, I am during the last 10 years, the last 5 years in Zurich, Switzerland. I work as engineer, currently during the last 6 or 7 years in YouTube. Before YouTube, it was Chrome and some other products. In YouTube, I am working on many different teams. My current team is Creator Studio. These are all the tools for creators on YouTube, like uploading videos, managing your comments, and like editing your titles, and doing many other things. Everything that basically creators need, including analytics and many other tools. So that's what I'm working on right now. And I am focusing on internal tools and infrastructure, so I'm not really developing the final product that comes to the users. I'm more concerned, and I'm developing the internal tools and infrastructure, and I'm working on engineering productivity. So everything that can make engineers more effective in their development work, that's my main responsibility. Including efficient releases and testing and quality and everything basically around development. But my talk is not going to be very technical today. So I would like to talk more about what happens in our engineering workplace and what happens in technology as an industry. That's why the topic for today is diversity and inclusion, and I will explain what is diversity, what is inclusion, why it is important, what problems we have there, and what are some of the solutions. Short note that I'm speaking on my own behalf. I will be talking a little bit about Google, but at the same time, most of the opinions that are in this presentation are my personal. So a couple of words about myself. I work in the industry for last 14 years. Before that, I was studying engineering, and also I got second higher education in management, and then I received my PhD in face recognition algorithms and image processing, and I published a book on biometrics, image processing, and face recognition algorithms. I would like also to mention how I came to engineering, how it happened that I am here and I'm working for Google. Basically, in Russia, where I'm from St. Petersburg. I came to university when I was 16 years old, and that means that I had to select what I'm going to do in my life when I was 15 years old. And because I was really good in many subjects at school, including math and biology and literature and everything else, so I was kind of interested in everything. That was really hard to understand what I want to do. I think some people maybe are very lucky. They know what they want to do when they are much younger, but I'm not this type of person. So I was thinking, what is going to be my future profession? And because my parents are both doctors, they said, why don't you continue our path and we will have like a family of doctors. And my grandmother was also working at the hospital, so like looks nice. And I went to preparation courses for exams to medical university for several months, and that was good. At the same time, afterwards, my father was thinking that in Russia, many doctors are studying and working a lot, but the salaries at those times were not really good for medical doctors. And they thought that maybe you should select something different. And my father said, why don't you look into IT and engineering? That seems to be quite interesting and emerging field. And I started looking into that as well. And then I passed exams into technical university. At the same time, I had some doubts. And these doubts are very common for many women, I would say. I heard them from many female engineers and from many girls. So some of these doubts were, is it going to be creative and fun? That was first thing, because I wanted to be creative, I wanted to do something interesting, and I never talked before to any engineers. I didn't know how actually they work, and just looking at some movies and, I don't know, having this image in my head that you are just going to sit in front of computer the whole day and code something, and is it really fun? That was the question. And is it something that is going to be really creative? I was not sure, I didn't know that at that time. Second, my doubt was about bringing good to society. What can I do good to people? If I am just coding some classes or methods in different files, if I'm doing programming, how much good I'm going to bring to society? For girls, actually, this is very important because we are taught, why girls go to be teachers and doctors. Because we kind of want to do something good for people, we want to feel that we are bringing something useful to society, and that was a very important question. Of course, there were other questions, do I fit in all this, and so on. And I think one of the issues, one of the reasons why I was asking these questions was actually because I didn't have enough exposure to engineering, and I didn't see any role models. I never talked at that point of time to any female scientists or engineers. And these were all the different imagination that I had in my head. And that is very common for many girls who are looking into their future profession. I would say that during my work, many years working in the industry, I resolved some of these doubts. And now, in my current work, I'm coding actually not that much. I do some coding, but I think it takes maybe 5 or 10% of my time at work. I was coding more in the past, but right now I'm mostly just organizing things, talking to people, planning, brainstorming, reviewing somebody's work, and so on. That's my current job, and there is lots of communication. Often it's meetings the full day. Like usually we have meetings, every meeting is half an hour, and then I can have like 12 meetings during the day. And then maybe in some breaks I manage to code a little bit, but that's not easy sometimes. So that's my current reality, but actually I enjoy it a lot, and I enjoy that I can influence many things, and many ideas that I have, I can actually really implement. Working with different colleagues, understanding who needs what, who could do some job. I'm not doing everything on myself, and also sometimes I get interns, so I already had 3 interns, and next year I will have 1 more for 5 months, and he's going to work on some exciting project that I was thinking about. So that's a lot of flexibility, a lot of freedom, and I like this work. I think from my story, you could understand that I spent a lot of time in my life studying at universities. I actually like studying and I like universities, and when I go through the area of ETH in Zurich, I'm sometimes really feeling excited, and I would like to maybe work there as well. That would be really fun. Or sometimes, give some talks or help students. And also I like to teach. I was teaching at university the 2 subjects. One is informatics and another is computer methods of human identification. And right now in Google I'm teaching new Googlers. We call them Nooglers. So when new Googlers come, they have usually during the first 2 weeks, lots of orientation sessions, lots of classes. Many of them are very technical. To give introduction to what is working in Google and how you should do it and what are our best practices. And I'm teaching there the course about testing and quality, basically explaining engineers how they should do it and that nobody is going to do it instead of them and what are the best practices and so on. Because I'm really passionate about education, I'm leading the community which is called G2G in Zurich office. It means Googler to Googler education. except our main job. For example, my main job is engineer at YouTube. If I'm passionate about education, if I want to teach somebody, I can start doing it during my work hours as well. And many other Googlers can do it. 75% of all the courses in Google, and we have lots of them, are taught by Googlers to Googlers. So we don't really invite external facilitators and teachers. Our employees are teaching other employees. That's how it works. And that's pretty exciting, and I'm leading this community, making sure that we are aware about the opportunities, how to teach, what can be taught, and many of the courses are created by Googlers. So it doesn't mean that they just took some, materials, curriculum and teach it. Many of the courses were created by Googlers themselves, so that's a lot of creativity and lots of freedom. And for example, this week we made a full week, this year we made a full week event called Teach and Learn, when we had 30 courses during the week in our office, and 15 of them were created just for that week, the first time at all. And they were like, many of them were technical, but we had also many fun courses like repairing your bicycle, or making a chocolate, or beer brewing, or learning Esperanto, or learning German, and so on and so on. So that was quite fun. That is about education. And another thing that I like doing is mentoring, consulting, and helping others to maybe resolve some issues and succeed. And that's what I do a lot in the community called Google Women in Engineering, which I started leading this year in March. This is community mostly containing women engineers, but also there are some non-engineering women there, and also people of other genders who are supporting inclusion and diversity. And we do lots of internal events, basically several events during every week. We provide mentorship, support groups, talks, breakfasts with leaders, and many other things. And I will talk about that very soon. Okay. Now about diversity. So basically, diversity is what diversity means. Diversity is when you bring to the table people of different backgrounds, ages, genders, ethnicity, speaking different languages, coming from different universities, having different races, neurodynamics, abilities, disabilities, and so on. There are so many different attributes of diversity possible. Of course, it's much more fun to have the team which is diverse. We don't want to work in the teams where there are only white males of the similar age coming from the same university, from all from the same country and so on, right? Of course, they can still provide different backgrounds and opinions, but at the same time, it's still, in a way, often limited. What is inclusion at the same time? So if you bring all these people to the table and they have these different diverse perspectives and experiences and all these different attributes, but you don't allow them to speak, or you don't accept their opinions, or you don't make the environment comfortable or safe for them to contribute with all their experiences and opinions, then this is all just lost. And it might even be worse, because if people don't feel well and they are so diverse, it can actually even cause more problems, I guess. That's why inclusion part is actually very important. Just diversity means nothing. We don't want to have diverse team for numbers, to say that, okay, we have this diverse team and so on. No, we want diversity because we want to get more creative teams, more fun environment, happier users, better revenues, and many, many other things. And because of that, inclusion is very important. Sundar Pichai, the CEO of Google, says that I firmly believe that whether you are building a company or leading a country, a diverse mix of voices and backgrounds and experiences leads to better discussions, better decisions, and better outcomes for everyone. Why does he say better outcomes to everyone? So I will just explain this. Basically, first of all, for the teams in the company, as I said, this makes more creative teams. What is engineering in a nutshell? This is problem solving. So if you're an engineer, the main thing that you are doing is solving interesting problems where there is often no one solution. There are many solutions, many approaches, many ways to do maybe the similar things, but with different trade-offs and so on. If you are working on solving problems, of course, that's very important how you are looking at problems, from which angle, how you are perceiving different things, and so on. That's why, if the team is diverse, we get better results of this process and more creative. This actually leads as well for the company to better revenue. And another reason why it is important is also that we develop the products which reflect the needs of our customers. So there were many situations, many cases in development history, maybe you heard some of them, when the products were developed and given to the market, at the same time they were not really successful, or some people were even very frustrated, some users, because those products were not taking them into consideration, their needs. Examples are that some races people of some races don't see their face very well on the pictures from the cameras, either photo or video, or safety systems in the auto business, in the cars. Up to some time, they were not really taking into account people of shorter height and so on. And there are many, many other examples if the team is not diverse, if people are not thinking about other cases possible and other ways to use the application, the applications are not going to be very successful, or they are losing lots of potential users. For women, it's also great because, of course, engineering is a very interesting profession. It's a very well-paid job. It gives you many opportunities to create, to innovate, to talk to new people, to travel, and so on. That's quite a fun job. And I don't want to see the situation that women are just cut off from technology and from great opportunities. That's also great for, in general, equality. And I'm not talking just about gender. As I said, there are so many other attributes and other ways to think about equality. And that's great for economy, and that's great for business. And we need more engineers, we need more developers in the industry. The industry is growing, and it's quite hard sometimes to find great talent. That's why we also need women. So these are just some of many, many different reasons why this is great. At the same time, yes, we have some problem. And you see representation of this problem on the slide. Basically, if you compare medical doctors, lawyers, or some other sciences, there is a growth of female workers there. If you see the years, everything was going and growing. At the same time, the area of computer science for gender diversity was not really great, especially after the 1980s or 1983. You see very steady decrease, and that's not something that we would like to see happening. That's actually quite disappointing for many companies and for many people. And also, like, why is it happening? There are so many different reasons. I will just name several because this is basically the discussion for the full day at least. But some reasons are that, for example, there is a version that in 1980s, 1983, 1984, there was exactly that time when personal computers were coming to homes, and they were promoted mostly to boys and to men in the advertisement, in newspapers, in mass media. And mostly parents were buying and putting these personal computers into boys' rooms. So even if some girls sometimes wanted to have computer, actually they just had computer for their brothers, for example. And that was, of course, like, I also had this situation. I have a brother, and a computer was in his room. So that's actually not the most comfortable thing. If there is one computer at home and it's not in your room and you have to go and, you know, like, it very soon feels different between the girl and boy because the boy becomes much more fluent in doing something there, like, you know, resolving some issues with computer and so on. And then after these computers came to homes, what started happening is that in education, teachers often started expecting students to already have some experience with computers. And then when girls were coming, they were not feeling comfortable because they had less experience than other boys. And I would say that many women are, unfortunately, perfectionists. So that's where they were actually hit, and they were feeling that, yes, I'm not fitting in, or that's not good for me, I'm not doing good in this, I will just go and do something else. There is lots of social influence from teachers, from parents. Unfortunately, many teachers, parents, or close relatives are kind of projecting these beliefs that there are some things that girls should do and some things that boys should do, and that actually, little by little, changes a lot the girls' perception about their, you know, purpose, about what they want to do in life. And there was one research which says that girls who, at the 8th grade in school, were interested in sciences, even though maybe they were not that, so it doesn't matter how their real accomplishments were, but if they had this interest, that actually predicted if they later come to technical university or not. So this interest is very important, and we can actually really influence this just by how we communicate with girls, how teachers are communicating, how parents are communicating. That's very, that's an area which is influenced a lot by the social circle. Also, girls perceive computer a little bit differently. They just use, like, mostly a lot, they perceive computer as something that they utilize for specific thing they want to do right now. This also explains, or it is related to the fact that girls play computer games much less than boys. So for boys, this is like a fun thing. That's in a way extension of themselves. That's a way to spend their time in a fun way, maybe with other boys. For girls, it's basically something more serious, to do some task. And that explains why it is a little bit something external to them. Also, there are many biases that I will talk about later. We all have these biases. For example, there is a very high bias in society connecting girls with home and, like, women with home and men with work or business, and connecting women with art and men with sciences. And I will talk about that later. And these biases, in unconscious way, are influencing many of the decisions made while hiring, while teachers do their job, at work. So in many, many different processes, there is this factor of bias that goes into play, and often people just don't really realize that they are taking men and women differently in the workplace. And one of the many other reasons is, by the way, family situation. So there is some statistics about that. For example, 25% of CEOs, unfortunately, I don't know in which country, but I can find this later. So anyway, there is a not very high percentage of CEOs, males, who have a working partner at home. At the same time, female CEOs, like there is a very high percentage of them who have a working partner. So that actually, if you think about this, that is just one of the examples of dividing the family work, family responsibilities, and how much people of different genders are participating in homework. And I already mentioned a little bit this confidence thing. Many women have imposter syndrome. Maybe you heard some statistics on explaining that women often, when they read the description of the new job, they want to see that everything in that description, they meet all these requirements. At the same time, men just need 60% of the requirements to be met, and they go ahead, they submit their CVs and so on. Very often when women meet some obstacles in this area of engineering, which is perceived often hard, a little bit elite, they immediately think that this is not something that they should do. So it's really hard to go through this. And very often if you go to some hackathons or summer schools for kids or for pre-university students, you will see this effect just like all the time. What happens is that when girls are coding and they meet some problems, they don't know exactly what to do, or something just doesn't compile, they are not sure, they probably do something wrong. So their reaction is immediately like, oh no, like I'm very bad in this, I should not even try, I will go away. So that's kind of reaction that many girls have. At the same time, for men, that's very easy. They just try, and then it works. Partially, I think, because if they see around so many other men, and they understand that these men are capable to do it, why am I not capable? So that's kind of strange, right? And when a woman comes and she's just surrounded with men, that sometimes brings some higher imposter syndrome, I would say. Very often, women attribute failure to their inability, and men attribute failure just to bad luck or some other external circumstances, not matching it to themselves. So that's kind of, that explains the problems with confidence and some fears that some women have. In Google Zurich, as I said before, I'm Google Women in Engineering community lead. And as I said, we do many different events. Most of the events that we do are internal for our internal community of Googlers. At the same time, we also help external community. We empower women outside of Google. We sometimes organize events around that. For example, previous week there was an event for the Day of Women Entrepreneurship. Also this week we had a great apero of women tech makers, which were just recently organized in Switzerland. And we have here one of the 4 organizers of the Women Tech Makers, Marion. So please raise your hand again. You can come to her later if you are interested to know about Women Tech Makers. This is one of the events happening, Women in Tech at CERN. Some other events are Women Tech Makers. So there is one big event of Women Tech Makers happening every year in March in celebration of Women, International Women's Day. And that was a full-day event on Saturday in Google Zurich office, where we had many talks, workshops, The talks were a lot about machine learning, artificial intelligence. Workshops were one about presentation skills, another also related to machine learning and fun networking. Girls in ICT Day in April this year in Google Office for external students. Also, sometimes different schools or pre-university students are coming to us and we give some talks or we show the office. So that's just one of the examples, the panel for ETH Summer Research Fellows. That happened in September this year, Hack Zurich, where there were developers from all across Europe. They formed the teams. They worked together during 2.5 days. Some were even sleeping there. And then they had the competition of the best projects, and that was really fun as well. So now, what we can actually do. How much time I have? I don't see the...
That's too bad. You have about 12 minutes.
12 minutes, okay. Yeah, so if I'm talking about what you can do, that would be the discussion for a week, I guess. There are so many things to do. But I will just cover it very short. First, I want to say that when we talk about inclusion, there are many practical things. It's not just a theoretical talk, but there are many practical things that you can do at your work or at your university. For example, meetings and discussions. Whom do you include into your meetings? Do the team members of your team feel that they are included into decision making? Or if they don't come to the meetings, do they get the meeting notes? Can they follow up afterwards? Can they influence the decisions? That's one important thing that you should always keep in mind, and you should be able to change in your workplace or at your university. Another thing is roles in the team. In software engineering and software development, there are many roles, not only developers, but also, for example, UX designers or product managers, project managers, and many other, depending on what exactly you are doing and what is your company. And then there is sometimes such a case that some people from some of these roles, they don't feel included enough. They feel that in the development process, they don't, for example, start in the right moment to influence the development decisions, for example, design. When do you include these roles in your working process? Do you include them too late, or do you include them at the beginning when they can actually really start contributing and changing the way you develop your product? So that's just a short example. If you are a manager or a tech lead, or in general you have opportunities to give some projects to others, right? How do you give that to people? Do you give it just to somebody who is most often talking to you or going to you with you to lunch, who looks like you, whom you maybe easier understand? Or do you think more about how to bring opportunities to others in the team? That's a very important question as well, and we should be always asking that, how can I be not biased in my decisions, and how can I give more or less equal opportunities to people? And training for managers, that's very important. So unfortunately in our industry, many managers were very successful developers, but they didn't get enough education. They also maybe didn't have enough experience in managing and talking to people and resolving conflicts, understanding what people need or how to help people develop. And they just become managers at some point because they were, for example, promoted. That's unfortunate. Many of them actually even don't want to be managers, but they still become. And that doesn't really help. And that's something that should be resolved. So if you are a person who is going to become a manager and you don't have experience, please look into more training. especially on diversity and inclusion as well, and on giving equal opportunities to people, and how to make people, how to help people speak up, and how to make a safe space for your team. Now about biases, I will just show the video first. No. Okay, let's do. I'm not sure, maybe I don't have internet. No, I should have internet, so.
If everybody were aware of the stereotypes that they have and the biases that they have. When we talk about unconscious bias, we're basically saying our worldview can actually exert an influence beyond our conscious awareness, and it creates ambiguity.
You go to an engineer who's built something extremely innovative, and you say, who do you think your user is? This is where I have the most fun. My name is T.B. Raman, and I led our work on Android accessibility for 3 years. Write down everything that you think you know about your user with respect to abilities, inabilities, special abilities, disabilities. Almost every assumption that you write down on that whiteboard about this is the user I think I'm building for is questionable. Because our various unconscious biases define the boundaries you're unwilling to expand.
These biases, they're the shortcuts that our brain has created so that we can deal with the information that we process every single day.
Right when we see anyone, whether we think about it or not, we are implicitly, automatically making judgments about how warm and competent that person or thing is.
All humans need to make decisions, and so we fill in the blanks because our brains are wired to do that, and we fill in with things we don't know with, past experience. Oh, you pattern map to someone I think I should hire, so I'm going to hire you versus this person because they didn't map, because I can't fill in the blank because they don't look like me, or they're not from my same background, and so I can't see how they're going to make the jump.
Every single person is great at things that you may not expect them to be, but it's really hard for us to see that when we're so powerfully guided by the things we expect to be true in the world.
I grew up surrounded with this conversation about what you can't do and what you won't be able to do. My name's Enrico, and I'm an autistic software engineer. The first time I go through the performance review process, I was asked for 5 strengths. It was the first time that I had ever been prompted to think in that way about myself, and it was really a life-changing moment for me.
When we are working in our day-to-day jobs, we are still making judgments about the people around us, about the resumes we see, about the employees that we're trying to decide, whether to put them on teams or not.
People are very wedded to the idea that they can perceive something objectively, and statistically they're wrong, but it's hard. You become attached to this idea that you can assess something by looking at it.
These subtle assumptions we make about people can have lasting effects on who we're promoting, who we're hiring, who we're putting in leadership positions. We have the responsibility to understand the assumptions that we make and understand the errors that we make.
But it's not just for the collective good. If you take the time to understand more about this, there are things that you can implement for yourself that'll help you develop as a leader and to do your job even better.
It made me realize how often I have a very strong belief that is simply incorrect. When I look at one of these evaluation situations, the first question is, how can I eliminate the sources of potential bias and leave just the data so we can actually make better decisions?
If you're not conscious of the biases that you have, you're just not contributing at the level that you could, and you're not innovating at the level you could. And so your products won't be as good. Your results won't be as good.
When you think outside the box with respect to the assumptions you made about how somebody would use this wonderful thing you built, and when you sort of broaden that perspective as to who you change the world for, you build something even bigger.
How do I close this now? Yes. Okay, so, and now. No, full screen is maybe this. Okay. So that was a very nice video about unconscious bias. I hope you understood what it is. And there is a training externally available, developed by Google, and everybody can actually go and learn. It was proved by research that when people learn, when they become more aware about the bias, it actually reverses some of the behaviors, at least for some time until they are, so sometimes it needs to be reminded again and again. But general awareness is actually helping a lot to eliminate some of the issues. There is also implicit association test that you can go online and fill in. And there you can understand more about your personal biases in relation to race, gender, and many other things. What you can do, first of all, as I said, the training is available externally, and there are some other companies which also made the unconscious bias trainings externally available. If you want, if you are passionate about this, if you want to help, please show these trainings or merge them and make your own training, whatever, in your company or at your university, or just look yourself and talk about this to your team. That's quite easy to do. And the last thing that I want to say before maybe we have time for questions or not, is that everybody here or everybody in the industry, everybody in technology can influence that, because you are working together with other people. So every your word, every your decision you are making is done with awareness, basically, about biases, about diversity and inclusion, and you can influence every day. When somebody talks not far from you about, maybe without respect to some of the issues people have, or they show lack of understanding of career development issues of people with disabilities or something else, you can just chime in and explain that maybe they are wrong, or you can recommend them to read more about this or watch unconscious bias trainings and so on. There is always lots of freedom for you to help and change the situation for everybody. Thank you.
We have time for a few questions, about 4 or 5 minutes.
Okay, let's have a couple of questions. What actually I liked a lot, several weeks ago I was in Freiburg on DevFest. There, everybody who was asking questions was getting chocolate. So that's a Swiss specialty.
We should give out transportation next year.
Okay. Any questions or proposals, ideas? Yes?
It's a pretty tough thought that I have about what would happen if everybody treats everyone equally. In the beginning of your talk, you said we want to have a mixed group of people to have different opinions. Sorry. So in the beginning, you said we want to have a group of people of different opinions to get better results. So if we treat everyone equally, we would give everybody the chance to bring in his opinions without any barriers. So I think this is the goal, and there was a little thought in my mind, like somehow we are not that equal because we have our different opinions. So can it be that at some point when we get closer and closer to treating everybody equally, it will on itself occur that we again start treating people for their opinions to get, or we are choosing then people again to get diversity again. So there is, for me, my thought experiment is like, what would happen when we treat people more and more equally? Do we get the same results from everyone at some point? So.
Okay, I think there is, so we can discuss it, of course, a lot, but basically there is a difference between treating people equally and giving people equal opportunities. Yeah. So you cannot treat people completely equally, right? So, for example, of course, if a person has disability and I need to help him or her to get from one floor to another, I'm not treating this person in the same way. If you are talking about like treating people in the same way, right? We are treating people in different way, depending on many things, right? I treat children in different way than adults, for example, and so on. It's not about treating people, it's about giving equal opportunities in the sense that this person with disability who wants to move from one floor to another has opportunity to apply for a job, to get hired, if he has or she has required skills, not be hit by the biases or any other thoughts that people might have about disabled people, for example, and how this person suits my team or something, right? And then be successful in getting new projects, in being promoted, for example, and so on, right? So this is what we are talking about. Yeah. It's not completely about treating people differently, it's about giving opportunities to people. And that's what I'm saying, that I would like to see that women have these opportunities and that they are not, as I say, hit by additional obstacles that they are meeting on the way.
Okay, good. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. One more question there.
Another question. So you mentioned that if girls at the age level of grade 8 are interested in science, there's a huge opportunity there that they might be interested in studying sciences when they grow up. So what can we do to actually reinforce this? What can we do in education to ensure that girls are more interested in technology and sciences at this age?
Yeah, so there is a lot that can be done. Unfortunately, in many countries, I would say in the most of the world, in schools, we don't have a proper computer science curriculum, or children don't get exposure to even simplest coding lessons, right? Trying and seeing how it works. What can help a lot is bringing this, but also bringing it in a fun, creative way, so that what actually girls want, and boys as well, it's not something that we do just for girls. It's basically helping everybody, right? So what we need to do is bring lessons which are very creative and hands-on, and which can actually, in a fun way, show what they can exactly do with technology. This is the main thing that can be done. And other things are like summer camps, or any like outside of main school gatherings, hackathons, events, and so on. That always helps. If parents know about these events happening and bring children, that's the great thing. So because even once this exposure will be, like unconsciously to this kid, this will change things. Because next time when this kid sees something, he or she will be already much closer to much more interested, because there was experience which was positive in the past, right? There are many tools, like in Google there is a program called CS First, which is based on block programming for kids, Scratch. The language is called Scratch, developed by MIT. So there are, in CS First, there are many curriculums, many kind of materials that teachers can use to give these fun lessons to students. And students can program very simple things, like small kids, I mean, and that's just one of the examples. Also, mass media, like try to show movies or cartoons, or bring kids some books about not only boys doing this fun stuff, but also girls doing. There are some new books about that as well, or about what women did in technology. There are books for kids about that. That's always great for them to see that it's not only men's job. And there are many, many other things, but I think I named the main. Basically exposure to fun experience in this area. That's the main way that you can bring this interest.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you for your talk and for your answers.
Thank you very much.